Hello, I am Deb Coviello, the Drop-In CEO, and I want to thank you as always for joining us on another episode of the podcast where week after week I have the pleasure of bringing on amazing guests who share their insights with you. And along the way, I do hope they inspire you. And we do this, we provide this resource because we want to partner with C-suite leaders so that they can navigate their challenges and opportunities with confidence. And this week I have two guests I am so excited to introduce. Jill Hoffman, who is currently the Senior Director of Food Safety and Quality at B&G Foods. Before moving over to B&G, Jill was previously the Director of Global Food Safety and Quality Systems at McCormick and Company. Over her career, she has worked across numerous product categories in various functions to include food safety and quality, operations, and continuous improvement. And also, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Jacqueline Southee, who is the North American representative for the Foundation FSSC 22000, the owner of the globally recognized GFSI Benchmark Food Safety Certification System, FSSC 22000, and the new FSSC 24000 certification for social management systems. Based in Washington, D.C., she works with public and private sectors to build a broader understanding of how the accredited FSSC 22000 certification can help businesses and industries. So it is my pleasure, both Jill, Jacqueline, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Deb.
Good to be here.
So I am so grateful. The power of the network. Melody Gee, who will also be a guest very soon on this show. I was introduced to these fine ladies by Melody and through the community of women in food safety. And while we are going to focus our conversation on quality and food safety opportunities and challenges, as well as those through the community of women, please know that all of these insights can be equally applicable, whether you're a C-suite leader or maybe somebody up and coming in your career and thinking about food safety and quality as a profession. So, Jill, it's my pleasure. Share a bit about yourself with my community.
Great, thank you. Well, you gave a quick, background of my my job history there, and I've been doing this for 22 years now. It's hard to really believe that it's been that long. All of it on the manufacturing side, and I started out really, kind of boots on the ground, working in factories. I've worked in quality and food safety a majority of my career, but I've also worked a little bit on the operations side and continuous improvement. And I really think that that's been helpful to create that well-roundedness so you understand your business partners and what they're working in, and understand different aspects of business as well. But yeah, I've worked up through the manufacturing side of food, and I've worked in a lot of different food sectors. Started out in meat and poultry, and then up through bakery, and then some confections in there, and then over into beverage, and then rolled up into spices, sauces, and then now at B&G Foods we have a very a huge variety of foods in our portfolio. And so I've gotten more experience just growing on some of the other food categories that I've had experience in, but we've added some frozen experience there as well as thermally processed and canned goods as well. So it's been a journey and a lot of learning over the years. But yeah, but again, I think food safety has sort of been my niche. I can't really tell you why or how that became, but for some reason, when I got into these food safety quality roles early in my career, I felt like that was where my home was. That was where I really grasped the information, the technical piece of it, but also blending the business side with it. And I just sort of excelled there. And that's where I just continued to take off from there in the food safety and quality space.
So I would love to start going into your background because it's so similar to mine and how I also came up through quality and food safety. But we'll hold that because
Sure.
I want Jacqueline to share a bit about herself with my audience. Jacqueline?
Well, thank you very much. And thank you, Deb, for this opportunity to be here. It's a real privilege for us. really enjoy the podcast medium. So my story is a little bit different. I actually started off in agricultural science. I also describe myself as a seasoned professional, and I feel very charmed to be able to join this network of women in food safety. And I feel that I can share a little bit of my own experience and offer, hope of opportunities. So I had a bit of a career change too. So I started off in agricultural science and moved towards animal welfare, with an experience of a lot of biotechnology techniques and in vitro tissue culture. And ended up in a situation where I was able to research alternatives into animal testing. So that was my real passion, to sort of work with consumer goods companies, and cosmetics companies to educate them into looking at different ways for testing chemicals and cosmetics. And so with the background in animal science and sort of in vitro technologies, I was able to apply that broad knowledge, to that field. And I enjoyed a great career in that. And then I ended up working for an American company out of Europe, and having a great perspective on international business in the consumer goods forum. And I was fortunate enough to meet my husband, who happened to be American. And as things progressed, we ended up relocating from the UK, obviously I'm English, to the US. And I took a career break. Um, I sort of took second place to his career, and raised a family. So I was actually out of the professional world for probably 13, 14 years, to bring up my children, and had a fantastic opportunity when we moved to Washington, D.C., to join a small foundation that was developing ISO-based food safety management systems. And they wanted somebody to represent the organization that is based in Europe, in the US. So I was able to build on sort of the experience that I had in agriculture in developing protocols, and also international business development, being on the other side of the Atlantic, to take up this position. And I've been working with the foundation FSSC now for about 11 years. It's been a great privilege for me to be able to work with them and see them grow, pull on a lot of the expertise that I've had, but it has meant that I'm kind of almost developing a new career, much later in my life. So it's great to sort of work with sort of young professionals, like Jill, like Melody, who you mentioned, and to work with the women in food safety is that forum, to give them a certain amount of confidence that if they did want a career break, that it's not the end of the world, that it opens up all sorts of opportunities. And also that, you don't necessarily become a second class citizen just because you stepped out of the professional world. And one of the biggest pieces of advice that somebody gave to me when I was thinking about returning, thinking that I could never enter this field, I don't have a wardrobe, I don't have the contacts, I don't have anything, was for them to say, use your network, go back to those contacts that you worked with when you were a professional, or when you were working previously, because to them you're still the same person. You're still, you're still a manager, you're still a director, you're still an international business person. Go back to them because you're still the same person. And I think through women, I think that when we sort of hatched the idea of women in food safety, I was concerned because as Jill will say, she's probably fed up of hearing. I don't think women are second-class citizens. We don't need anything special. But what we do need is we want a networking, that works for us, and that we can use, and we can share our stories, because they are slightly different. We do have slightly different challenges. They're just different. There's, we're not inadequate, or we need special things. We just need different opportunities. So while the networking opportunity offered, what I saw, a means of communicating to women coming up in their career that, as I said, maybe thinking of taking a career back, maybe thinking it's the end of the world, but to let them know, stay in contact with your network, use them. And, if you want to take a break, then having children is one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done. But then you can also come back and have another opportunity in another field, meet other wonderful people, and also be satisfied. So I think that's really what I would like to share with everybody. So develop your network and stay in touch.
Oh, lovely, lovely. And I'll lean into that a little bit. But we talk about, we want to support the women, but I have actually come across a lot of men who have come across my doorstep, and I've been out of work for a year. I've been out of work for 2 years. And I think your advice about staying connected with your network, and I also say understand your value. And it's not necessarily the industry you worked in or your technical area, but what is your value? And value transcends multiple industries, which I think we need to reinforce so that people retain their confidence when they choose to go in and where they choose to go into the workforce. But I'd love to come back to Jill. Jill,
Oh no.
you and I are so similar. And again, these were great talking points. But I find that your background in quality and operations is so helpful. And I was just wondering what your reaction to this. We're going to spend a lot of time on women in food safety, but I found that as a quality professional, and I started out in electronics manufacturing, then I went over to the fragrance industry where okay, good manufacturing practices was starting to become a thing. I jumped over to the flavors division, a close cousin to food safety. Oh my, it was a wake up call because you can kill people, not just kill a brand. And then I realized that I started learning a lot in risk management. And then in that, risk management transcends all industries, but the importance of a food safety or quality professional to partner with the operations. Operations has so much on their plate. And then here we come along and add a whole bunch of requirements to them. I'm curious about having that background in both quality and operations. What's your approach to partnering with the operations leaders that got them hands full with trying to get orders out and human resource issues, et cetera? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great point. So my experience over the years, and I think again, being in on the operations side earlier in my career helped me see that. Um, it allows you to understand what the priorities are for that function. And so being a production supervisor, I had my charge every day. I knew, what my line efficiency was supposed to be, how many cases I needed to get out the door, my staffing, et cetera. There was all these things that were my daily priorities. And whenever I had questions about product quality, food safety things, I always had to go ask questions because in that period of time, that wasn't where I was focused. I was focused on line efficiency, cases, et cetera. And so I found I had to go asking a lot of questions because I wasn't sure where to go for the information. So as I transitioned back over, because I did start out in food safety quality, then I went into ops, and then I went back. I kind of took that piece of it and said, you know what, we need to be better teachers about food safety and quality with our partners. It's a huge piece because again, you have to look at what's my world today? Where's my focus? And our focus in food safety and quality is making sure that we are, compliant, safe, and high quality. So we're again not killing brands, but how do we convey that so that our non-technical partners can easily take that and apply it in their job? Let's not burden them with tons of technical papers and things that are way over their head. And now when you get into talking about things like food safety culture, you really have to make an impact across your entire organization. It's the people on the line, on the plant floor. It's the supervision, it's the plant management, and then it's of course your broader corporate management and up all the way to the C-suite and understanding that. And so it's really about being a teacher as well as being that business partner and figuring out what's the critical information and how do I make it applicable, relevant, and easy to understand for the different groups that I need to communicate with.
And I
So,
think that is so powerful, regardless of your profession, whether it's regulatory, whether you're an environmental health and safety professional, human resources. We all have compliance and requirements and goals and targets. But unless we have the tools to communicate, as you said, the most critical information that they need to know, because ultimately you got to form a connection with their mind and heart to recognize, oh, what Jill is sharing is really important because I can ship as much as I want out the door and have the best efficiency. But if it's coming back and I lose customers, I've wasted my time.
mhm.
So being an educator is such a critical, not only in your role, but any role in the organization so you can have maximum influence. So I love that. I love that. Now, I'd love to just kind of play with another topic here and I come over back to Jacqueline because you brought up the fact that you have this international experience. And I'm curious, actually, I'm just curious when it came to, I believe Europe has for a long time been very, very focused on, standards and compliance, et cetera. And then we come over to a new culture, and I'm sure you've worked all over. What are there any challenges when trying to advocate for such standards and their value? Is there a difference in how you market it, brand it, sell it, educate people on it? I'm just curious.
Yes, definitely. And actually, you hit on a very key point. So the FSSC 22,000 and FSSC 24,000 are management systems, and they're based on the ISO management system approach. And that's the key thing of the foundation. So we make ISO management systems available to industry to ensure that they're doing the best that they can. So they're business systems and they've been adapted to, provide companies, as Jill talked, with a tool to manage their food safety and with 24,000, their social obligations in the supply chain. Now, the difference is that in Europe and in Asia, um, industry really is quite conversant with the ISO management approach. In Asia, many countries actually use ISO management systems as a basis of their regulations because in the third world, the ISO management systems are developed by the ISO organization. So they're a valuable resource to sort of developing economies. They suggest, the best way of doing things. In Europe, also, the industry leans on the ISO approach too, so they're very conversant again. In America, it's quite different, particularly in the food industry. They're not so familiar with the ISO management system approach, and sometimes they're a bit nervous of it. So definitely, a lot of my work is educating industry over here on the ISO approach and to illustrate how it can be used and how its whole objective is to bring the C-suite down to the floor and to meet those needs that Jill described. The most important person in a plant is that's handling the food. But they're not making the decisions. With an ISO management system approach, that they have to be empowered. The culture has to be there, the communication has to be there, the education has to be there, the leadership has to be there. And it's a whole company ethos. Before you can become FSSC certified, you have to show that you have management commitment and the
Yeah,
resources. And that's new to a lot of the industry in the US. So yeah, really, as well as using the language, sort of business approach is different in Europe than it is to America. America is done much quicker on this, it's done sort of um, I would describe it as, now, or even yesterday, whereas in Europe, well, let's consider this, let's talk about it, I'll send you a letter. Whereas in the US, it's done much quicker. They want decisions, they want prices, they want a return of investment. Um, but so I'm doing both. I'm doing that interpretation of the business approach, but also educating on the
very
values
good.
of using the ISO management approach. And it extends, as you talked about, environmental management, energy management, sustainability. The tools are huge there, and I do believe that America is waking up to the value of the management systems.
And what I would like to respond about that, and what I really love what you said, is the fact that it is the whole culture, and we're going to start transitioning quickly into women and food safety. But I can recall a time, it was not on a food safety issue, it was more of a quality contamination issue, where I had the opportunity to interface with a line worker, and we were doing some training. And when they were able to articulate what they were doing, how they were doing it, why was it important, what was the impact to the customer of doing it wrong, and the repercussions when you make that connectivity in the minds and the hearts of a line worker who is closest to your customer, you have transcend that cultural divide that you spoke about from high level leadership concepts and standards, and making sure that it's understood through and through. So again, for anybody out there, regardless if it's a standard or it's an initiative or some other regulation or thing that we must do, when you can get to the point where your people on the floor truly have internalized it, you've done the right thing in terms of educating and influencing. So thank you both. I was just curious about those different perspectives based on your background, but I'd love to kind of bring it together now because I am, interestingly, through this conversation, a conversation I've had with Melody and another two ladies from the organization, I'd really like to have some more exposure to the Organization for Women in Food Safety. I'd love to know a little bit more about your thoughts and the value of the organization and what it's doing. And then we're going to kind of go from there because I want others out there, if you're not aware, to either engage with your organization or be a supporter of your organization so we can continue to provide value. So tell me more about your interests and what do you see are the opportunities for this community? Jill.
Who wants to go first? I'll go first
Yeah.
then. But anyways, so this Women in Food Safety group has taken off and in a great way. I'm sure, Melody has given you some background when you spoke with her on how we started and where we are today. But it's really about a place for us to come together with this common thread of food safety, working in food safety. But it's a networking, it's for educating and supporting. And, we've really grown from where we started with some just COVID era happy hour, virtual happy hours to, we are now representing at some different food safety conferences. We've been able to sponsor some networking events at these conferences, and we're continuing to build out what we can do to support the community. And I think the biggest thing from my perspective is it's not about, we're different than men in the workforce or in food safety. It's that we've just needed a place to have some level of community and support some of those challenge areas and gap areas that we experienced ourselves working as women in food safety. And we found that thread is what's brought a lot of people to the group and wanting more from the group, really. I think like I said, it's taken off in a great way, and we're still continuing to work on how do we make this group even bigger and more resourceful, to the members.
But I'm curious, you talked about, the challenges and gaps, and then the group wants more. So what are some common themes what are the kinds of challenges this demographic is experiencing? And then part two, what more can we do to support this group? Because if there's anybody out there that's getting interested, I'd love for you to advocate. So challenges for this group, what can we do more for them?
So yes, I'm going to pick up that because I think that we're constantly being surprised by some of the communication that we get from the group. As Jill said, we have had some meetings and we've been really overwhelmed by the responses that we've had. We've had sessions at the conference, and so many women turn up, with their stories and wanting to connect. And a common challenge that we find, and it may not be unique to women, but it's finding themselves in a position where they're not able to progress, and that they're having, they find themselves with the need to change their job. And I know this is a common problem to male and female. It's not a gender thing, but sometimes because of the ties of the family, it's harder for a woman to actually up and relocate for her job. It tends to be, and I'm an example of this. You tend to relocate with your husband, whether it's an income thing, whether it's a biological thing, whether it's a time thing. So it's more often that it's harder for a woman to change her job and relocate. And so there's opportunity, there's a frustration of how they can progress, in the company, and how they can find mentors and how they can develop their career. Often the answer is, if you can't progress in your company, then move. You're gonna progress better. You're going to be more value to another company. But we do find that that's a common question. We also find that working with women is sometimes a challenge. Sometimes that we need to instill a confidence in women that it's okay to work with other women, and we have found that women must support each other. And another value that I think that stuck out to me when we're conversing, we're bringing women together, is their joy or satisfaction or I don't know, revelation of talking to to people in different sectors within the industry, because they tend to be working in one sector, whether it's packaging, whether it's quality, whether it's dairy, and to have conversations with women in different sectors, and then they find that they still have the same problems, they still have the same challenges, so they can share, perhaps how they've overcome those challenges. So again, I come back to the networking. We cannot underestimate the value of getting people together, and in a safe space, that they can talk about whether their shoes are uncomfortable, as well as, the problem that they're having with the C-suite. And it's just the conversations that we have that are, beneficial to everybody. And I think that's a advantage that we've seen from the group.
So I can share a little bit of a story as well on my side, is that I too, for a while, we invest in our families, whether it's elderly, significant other, or children. And I, for many years, stayed put in order, but more for the children to have some stability in their education system before they went off to university. But once they did, I was fortunate to be in a situation where I was able to pick up and move from New Jersey, move out to Cincinnati, Ohio for a role, because my spouse had a transferable skill. But I think in that lesson, however, while we feel tied and we do make those sacrifices, or shall I say investments in the family, it could go either way. We could pick up and move, but I think it all comes down to recognizing what our value is. We have experience in quality and food safety. That's what brings us all together. But does it have to be exactly in the same industry? Sometimes, as you say, different sectors will recognize your value, even though you haven't exactly worked there. And I think there's great value in building up one's confidence. I know how to communicate. I know how to lead. I know how to lead projects. And all of those skills are valuable. And I can quickly learn the specifics. When you can articulate your confidence to be transferable, making that shift, moving someplace else becomes a little bit easier. And I think through your network, we can provide that support and confidence that the ladies need. So
the thing that we have done is we have monthly webinars, or cozy chats, and we were privileged enough to have yourself come and talk to our group, which was very valuable. And so we invite women leaders to come and talk to us, and it's very informal. It's online. It's in a webinar situation, or a Zoom meeting, or a Teams meeting, where we come online and we'll have a women leader talk to us about how they got to where they were, or their story, or their challenges, and that's also valuable to get that experience in, because everybody has a different story.
So I'm going to jump in here, and I know Jill, you want to talk, but again, are you looking? This is you and I. Our listeners get to listen to this. Are you looking for more female women in the flavor food industry as potential guests for you? Because I know a ton. I know a ton.
Yes.
And even not from the industry, but on topics that I think would be relevant. So, okay, I'm sorry, Jill. I just had to jump in there.
No, that's great.
Experience. Yeah, we all love to learn. All of us. We learn things all the time. So
yeah, we're always on a constant search for guest speakers and topics. So yeah, anything you can offer, we are welcome to it. The one thing I'll also add about the group, one of our pillars is building the future of women leadership. And so there's a huge passion, I know from Melody's perspective too, to help build, the younger generation up. And I think what we've been hearing more and more is that we're losing our bench, just there's not as many young people coming up through this profession. And they're seeing it across the board. It's not just in manufacturing. I think it's across the board. I know recently in some conferences, it was even a topic that the FDA shared about just finding people to work in this profession. And so I know I fell into this all happenstance. I wasn't in college saying I'm going to work, in this food safety sector and do this, this, and this. I had no idea. I mean, honestly, when I look at how I got here, it was all happenstance. And it would be really nice, if we were able to engage more with again, females in their college years, so they knew what these career paths were and how they get there, and start that early networking. And so we have had some attendance from that population to our webinars, but we're, trying to, again, build that pipeline so that we're connecting. They know what types of careers, and they already even have a network and a base of people to reach out to and ask questions, which I think is great, being that we're struggling to get people to come into this profession, and even studying these topics in school anymore. So that's a big piece of this group as well, is how do we again tap into the younger generation of food safety leaders.
My brain is like thinking here while you're talking. I'm writing down all these notes. I already got two people I want to introduce you to. And I also am part of a wonderful organization, a parallel to what you're doing, Women in Flavor and WFFC, Women in Flavor and Fragrance Commerce. And so on the flavor side, obviously, we've got food scientists, we've got commercial procurement people, developers, quality, and some supply chain professionals for which we have to manage through the regulations of food safety. So I'm wondering if potentially there's a partnership, cross speaking at each other's things that might be worthwhile, because I'm sure at some point we kind of circle through the same
Yeah,
conferences,
I
etc.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also obviously share job opportunities too. So we have a LinkedIn group. So if we see a good position that we think that would be good for a young scientist or one of our network, we share them. So again, the cross fertilization of the two groups would be fantastic.
So, if you had an opportunity right now to speak to my audience, because you said something that we want to bring more to this group. We want to further evolve them, help them, support them. What are the kinds of either opportunities, situations to position yourself and say, we're here and we want to grow and help? Or what kind of people do you want to maybe come into your sphere that might be influential, helpful, a great networking partner? Because if they're out there right now, I want them to connect with either Jill or Jacqueline. So who might those people be? What do you want to bring into your world?
Well, I can add. I'll start, I guess, and Jacqueline can add. Like I said, we've grown faster than we've ever thought this would turn into, and so being at some of these conferences and engaging in these networking events, we're hearing from our membership what they want and trying to respond to that as quickly as possible. And so what we're finding is, we're heavily based in North America, the US at this moment. We've just now added a Latin American chapter, led by, a member that just felt the need to bring that community together down there, the Spanish speaking community, and that's taken off as well. But, we get people asking, hey, do you have a local group that maybe we can just get together and, this area of the US and do lunches, like all the people that live in Chicago? Because we have, we know there's some places in the US where we have a huge community of food safety professionals. And so we're looking at, well, how do we get somebody, maybe a representative, to be our, like a chair or something in those areas to help that, continue to grow out those types of communities. How do we grow this even more internationally? And so we're looking for folks that want to raise their hand to lead that, but then we also need to figure out what it is that we want to do in those spaces, and give them some structure as well.
Yeah, I would love to introduce you to WFFC because we have chapters in New Jersey, in Chicago, and in Cincinnati. And we do have a management company that helps to provide the structure, the systems, the bylaws, our charters, and things like that, a little bit more formal, or at least ideas that can help you solidify the structure and how you might want to work,
Mhm.
not necessarily, go to that level of management systems for this. So definitely going to introduce you
Yeah,
to a few people
we'd
because I think
love
what
to
you're
hear
doing,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
same
I
kind of group,
agree.
educate. Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Yeah, no, I would second that because, we are struggling with the structure. As Jill said, we've grown so fast, and I'm not sure what our current membership is. We're a LinkedIn group. We have a website, but we don't have anything more formal than that. But we are putting that together. So I think advice on that would be great. We have had some sponsorship as well, so that we can, offer some travel grants for the young scientists to come to meetings, because we believe that it's good to get them out. Um, Other information that, other members would be great. We look for mentors as well. If anybody is in a position that they believe that they could maybe online offer some advice, I think is always good. So I think expanding the membership is probably number one. That I have, while we do have our focus on women in food safety, obviously different levels is of interest to us. We do want more speakers so that we can share that expertise. And I think and I don't, no, I agree with the local chapters because I'd like to say we'd be able to present ourselves or to have situations where we could have a platform at different meetings. We are fairly well we are fairly well covered. We probably do need more local activity so we could focus in. So rather than just getting one huge group at one huge meeting, we need to focus in so that there's more value from that networking. And I know personally, if there's just a few of us that get together every so often for, a chat or a drink, you achieve a lot more than if you're in a huge group. So the small group format is good for sharing.
Wow. So I keep writing all these names down. So we're going to have a bit of a chit chat when we're done here
Sure.
recording. But what I'd love to do, and again, this is the value of the network. I want to provide value to the organization because I care. And I've also had the good fortune of being interviewed by Melody for a magazine, as well as being a guest speaker. So again, thank you for the opportunity to support your group. And I ask anybody out there if this has been of interest, people, you may not directly want to or can engage with women in food safety, but if you know somebody or a community of people that may value this, I sincerely ask for you to reach out to Jill Hoffman and Jacqueline Southee, because if you don't know somebody, if it's not you directly, you may know somebody that can help this group. So again, I have so enjoyed this conversation, ladies, and I would love to give each of you the floor one last time before we bring it to a close. So Jill, any last words or thoughts?
Gosh, well, I mean, it's been a great opportunity to just come on here and share just a little bit of the background, how I got to where I'm at, and also about the Women in Food Safety group. I think again, there's such a huge opportunity to continue to grow this group and more that we can do. And again, getting the word out, but also our leadership group within Women in Food Safety, figuring out how do we bring more to our future women leaders.
All right, thank you. And Jacqueline.
Yes, and I'd like to expand on that point to actually maybe have reached down into some educational establishments. If we have teachers out there that have an opportunity to tell young people, think about the science. We need to start furnishing the field with good scientists, good toxicologists, as we learned from that last meeting that there is a dearth of talent coming through. We still need them. So think about a career in science. Think about a career in food safety. Think about a career in agriculture, because there are huge opportunities that you don't even know of. And there amongst, sort of non-food safety colleagues, something that it reminded me of when we were finishing up our session that we had recently in Chicago. We had an AV technician who was supporting our session from the back of the room. When we'd finished the session, he came up and he said, "I just wish my daughters were here to listen to what you said." So,
Yes.
because it's not just us talking to him, it's talking to everybody. Everybody, can share. And that kind of left a mark on my heart. So I'd like his daughter to hear what we're saying too.
All right. So thank you so much, Jacqueline, Jill. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for dropping it on the podcast. And I wish both of you and your support for women in food safety much success. Thank you.
Thanks,
Then.
Deb.
Thank you.